It's remarkable how all of a sudden a sudden hush appears over the audience these days, and when you come up to the lecture stand, it's almost like there's some gravitas to the proceedings, which is not really what we're here for. We're here really to ensure that we've got a convivial educational environment and also a little bit of social activity here at the Liverpool Medical Institution. It's my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Ramana Dhannapuneni, who is really one of the most extraordinary cardiac surgeons I've ever come across. He qualified in 1992 at Andhra Medical College in India. He's been a consultant cardiac surgeon at Alderhay Children's Hospital since 2010. And he also does a little bit of work at the Liverpool Heart and Chest. Is that right? I don't know, that shouldn't be allowed. You should be staying at Alderhay. On various things, it's a special interest include neonatal heart surgery, complex intracardiac and biventricular repairs, pectus and chest wall reconstructive surgery, humanitarian surgery and international work. The complexity and skill required to do that portfolio is really quite extraordinary. Some of us only get good at one thing, and I can just about do bronchoscopy. But to have that, I know, that portfolio is an amazing portfolio. What fewer of us know is that Ram has been volunteering with a charity called Healing Little Hearts since 2009. Healing Little Hearts provides free heart surgery to babies and children in some of the most poor countries around the world. I don't know what your current total is, but when you got the Heart Hero from the British Heart Foundation in 2019, it was reckoned you'd done over 400 voluntary cardiac procedures. I'm going to ask you, do you keep a logbook? How many is it now?
No, actually the data is correct.
That's current. So 400. So you've done 400. Just 400? He's incredibly humble. I'm sure it's more than 400 that he's done now. Anyway, I will move the slide on. For those of you that haven't spotted, there's this fancy QR code. And if you scan it with your phone, medical students as well, because the medical students, you can put this in your e-portfolios as well to show that you've done stuff outside your lectures. So you scan that in, you'll get a CPD certificate in 2 or 3 days once I get round. So Gokul, yeah, get your phone out, Gokul, because you might learn something here. That's it. If Gokul's getting his phone out and he's another cardiac surgeon, then yeah, that's it. Any others? Because I'm going to move it forward. Did you get it? Yeah. Good. Okay. Ram, you're going to have to come up now. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you Mr. Ramana Dhannapuneni. Thank you very much. It's up there. It's up there.
Thank you so much, Kalam, for that generous introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm a bit ashamed that I've never been here. This is my first time, but it's an eye-opening for me to see the wealth of history preserved here, and I will come more often. And thanks for that invitation. Thank you all, the LMI members, and thank you for coming. It's just the simple work we do, but it is unique, so that's why it gets that attention. That's what I feel. I've been a cardiac surgeon in Alderhay Children's Hospital since 2010. I raised a question about whether I work at Liverpool Heart and Chest Hospital. But what do we do when the children who had heart surgery grow up and then go into adults? We have to go with them and operate, because the congenital surgeons are the only ones who know the pathology, anatomy and physiology. So we don't let the adult acquired cardiac surgeons to operate on them. And also UK, we are very well regulated. We have very good standards in UK, especially in congenital cardiac surgery. Unfortunately, after that Bristol incident, we all know in 1990s, it's very much regulated, standardized, audited, and etc. So that's why we operate on adults when they carry on with the congenital heart defects. The topic here is not much medical, not much scientific, but it's about the other side of work which we can do and enjoy at the same time enjoying our professional careers. So it's all about global heart safety. I'm glad that my two colleagues who I closely work with at Aldahe, Barry Pfizer, oncologist, and Sean Falder here. We work together with, we have in Aldahe, in the Department of International Child Health, we all join together and share our experiences of working abroad. And that's a good thing happening with Barry and Sean leading, and Sean is talking in a couple of weeks time. Sorry to tell that in advance. So I'll carry on with my talk. So I just want to go in and explain to you about what is the current situation or scenario about heart surgery in the developing world. So why is all this fuss about we going, and what is the need of us going to go and then do this work? The opportunities for us as well to develop ourselves, to network, and it's a great opportunity. As I always feel that a great opportunity to serve, and I think not many medical professionals do have that, because a lot of people want to do charity work, but there are not opportunities or organizations there to help. And I've come across a lot of people, they want to do something, and I'm lucky to have those opportunities. Our experiences, there are a lot of good experiences, and there are a lot of bad and humiliating experiences as well doing this work. The benefits to global community, not only that, as I said, we learn and we become better. So there are personal benefits to the hospitals and the NHS with this work. So why heart disease in children is a major problem in developing countries? So congenital heart defects are one of the most common and deadly birth defects. It's a common cause, one of the common causes for stillbirths, neonatal, infant, and childhood mortality. The incidence roughly is about 1 in 100 live births, and there's not much variability of where you live, or whether you're rich or poor, or what color you are. The only difference could be consanguineal marriages, where you see slightly increased incidence, and certain genetic conditions carry congenital heart defects like Down syndrome, DiGeorge syndrome, Marfan syndrome, etc. But the incidence is related to the fertility rate and the population and childbirths. And that's very, very important for us. So the higher the population, higher the fertility rate and the birth rate, the higher the incidence and more children with congenital heart defects. And I'll explain that to you. So this is from United Nations data. This just depicts the annual birth of children in each country. As you can see, the most populous countries, India and China. India this year has taken over China as the most populous country with about 1.5 billion people. In India, about 27 million children were born each year. It's slightly come down, this old data. The current data is that about 25 million children are born in India each year, and next to that is China. Okay, so about the data for the continents as to number of childbirths with congenital heart disease. So Asia each year adds about 725,000 babies with congenital heart disease, and Africa. So together they make up to most of the congenital heart disease in the world. Not all of them may be significant, but some of them would require immediate attention. This slide depicts the facilities to treat them, and in here you see the bubble depicts the size of the population, and this axis depicts number of cardiovascular centers. You see USA with this population has the highest cardiovascular centers in the world. Understandably, it's private driven and incidence driven. And the big population countries like China and India have very low cardiac centers, and Africa too. And then if you look at the cardiac surgeons for population, North America and Europe have one cardiac surgeon for about 3.5 million people. And when you look at Asia and Africa, one surgeon for 25 million or one surgeon for 38 million. It's all making a picture for us to understand why it's a big problem in the developing countries. So congenital heart defects particularly is a big problem because the lack of skilled healthcare workers. CHD is very complex. Congenital heart disease, we term it as CHD. It's very complex even to diagnose and treat, and it needs very specialized and trained professionals and a lot of training. And for that reason, in many developed countries, congenital heart disease treatments, especially the surgical interventions and higher interventions, they're tertiary. So for entire northwest region, Aldhay is the only center serving the northwest of England, North Wales, Isle of Man. And in England, we have about 10 centers. Scotland has 1 center. That just tells us how tertiary these treatments are. And there's no financial incentives in treating children with heart defects when you compare with adult heart defects. Like take countries like India. There's so many adult centers, there's so many adult surgeons, and it's easy to treat adults. Percutaneous interventions, stents, come in and go one day, less expense for hospital but more income. And adult cardiac surgery, 4 or 5 days of hospital stay, 1 day ICU stay. But children and babies, they take longer in ICU, more expense for the hospital. So they don't generally encourage pediatric cardiac surgery. The difficulty in access to heart surgery could be various reasons. One is economic. It's a bigger problem in developing and underdeveloped countries. And we talked about education and training that goes with the level of development of that country. Political instability. Some countries, though have decent otherwise health facilities, do struggle time to time. And we see the terrible incidents in Gaza. And Gaza never had a pediatric cardiac service, basically. So we went to Palestine in West Bank. So we were getting all the newborn children crossing across Israel from Gaza to West Bank to Nablus for treatments. Governmental policies, you take an example of India. India is the 5th largest economy in the world. So you would expect that it should do very well in healthcare. But 2 problems. One of the problem is that India, when we look at it, is there are 2 kind of people living. One is rich, one is poor. India probably has more millionaires and billionaires, but at the same time, India has more poor people than any other country in the world. And not only that, the government policies. So in India, most of the healthcare is private, 80%. And you see the hospitals, clinics like shops in India. You go to every street corner, you have a clinic, or like a superstores there, they have hospitals. They call multi-specialty hospitals. And the government sector provision of healthcare is very less. That's partly because the GDP spent, and it's just, that's how India has built its healthcare system, that mostly private. Size of the country, small countries, it's very difficult to build a pediatric cardiac centers in smaller countries because they don't have enough people to teach and train or to treat as well. The cost of operations are expensive. As I mentioned that to do for example, I take countries like India. So for a coronary bypass surgery, it might cost up to 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. For a pediatric or neonatal cardiac surgery, it could be at least 5 to 10 times. So that is the difference in terms of cost. And we talked about population. So this is one example as the disparity. So when we announced a camp, we call it a mission as a camp in southern state of Vijayawada, we're surprised to see parents travel all the way from Bihar in North India. And if you travel by car, it takes 1 hour 1 day. It's 1,200 kilometers, roughly about 800 miles. Because they were thus desperate that around that area, there's no other center or facility available for them to access an operation for their child. The child was operated and doing well. So this is when they came back, then we realized this for follow-up. So generally we are used to NHS where we don't think of where the funding come from or who funds from. For us, it's the government funds, we access it. But in general, there are four kind of facilities or funding which can help people. The best is public. The Northern European countries are very good. UK and Canada are very good at this. So if you see the GDP spent on healthcare, countries like UK, France, Germany, we spend anywhere between 10 to 12, 13% of GDP on healthcare. But you compare that with India, that is less than 5%. So that's the difference. And private sector only can accessible for rich people or people who have insurance, insurance of work related or private insurances. There are luckily some charitable institutes we come across. They are set up by religious groups, but they treat every religion people, not just for their religion. But there are a number of them in India. We see and we work with them. But there's so much they can do. They have limitations of how much they can do for a population. And finally, insurance-based. It is difficult for a common and average man in India to obtain health insurance. And unfortunately, congenital heart defects are not covered by any insurance company in India. So what can we do? How we can help? There are two things we can help: the infrastructure and facilities, or help the human resources. Infrastructure funds, which is beyond our stage to fund any hospitals or facilities. Equipment, we can do a little bit from overseas. But the area we wanted to concentrate or where we can make a big difference is developing or improving the human resources, teaching, training, etc. Equipment, we do very little of this equipment transfer. There's a lot of wastage in NHS, unfortunately. We open and then throw the expensive valves. Sometimes you see, it's very rare, but surgeons open, but it doesn't fit and it's gone in the bin. There are unused items, and they're soon to be expired and expired items. And it's important because if you put a mechanical valve in a human body, it never expires. It can last until the person dies, but the valves expires. Why? That's because of the package expiry, and the companies insist that you cannot use them. So we throw them and they're a waste. But if you have a facility where you can re-sterilize it, you can use it. So that's where we take the advantage, and we take expired valves, or we take soon to be expired valves from here to developing countries, and unable to re-sterilize in NHS hospitals. And this causes a lot of wastage in UK. Just say to one example, to close a small VSD, we need a small artificial patch. And probably a few years ago, we're talking about 5, 6 or 7 years ago, we used to get a big patch. A scrub nurse would scrub up in a sterile environment. She would cut into multiple pieces. They would go for sterilization and come back in small pieces. But we're not allowed to do that anymore. And we open a big patch, take a small one and waste that. But what we do is that we can preserve, we keep all of them, because other hospitals around the world have the sterilization facility. And one trip with those patches, they can run 1 year with those patches. So those kind of things we take quite a lot. And sometimes the medical companies do help us as well when we request them for heart valves. And sometimes we use things like in Aldahe recently, we have obtained about 40 IV infusion pumps from ICU. So how it works in the NHS and the companies is that companies set a time frame for the equipment, and after that, though they are working, you can't use them. You have to replace them. 3-4 years after usage, infusion pumps go. And where they go is that they go for an action for cheap money. So somehow we found an enthusiastic medical scientist in Aldahe, biomedical scientist, who wanted to help us. So he set up, through the processes, he set up about 40 IV infusion pumps aside. And we have to give a declaration to them that Aldahe is not responsible for any malfunction of these pumps, and they came it for free. And we have sent already some to Canada, and there are some in my office going to Namibia and other centers. So equipment, very little we can gain by doing that, but we do equipment transfer. But the main thing is workforce education and training. How we can do that? Can we bring them? We can bring them, but how many we can bring them? We can't bring whole teams to come over here. Can we go there? Then how often we can go there? But a combination of these things and doing it repeatedly, and that I think works much better. And it's not just treating in procedures. Luckily, we have an advanced culture in medicine and the medical practice in the Western world. It's completely different out there. So we can transfer those things. We can teach them what is the teamwork like, what are the team dynamics like. And we see, unfortunately, still a very hierarchical system in those parts of the world. A consultant is the boss. Whatever he says is the dictate. So nobody can challenge, nobody can suggest, and those things. But with our repeated work, we see the culture changing. And that's important for us too. Modernizing the local practices, we still see some of the practices are 20 or 30 years back, whereas the medicine has advanced. We can influence that. We can put in a culture of safety, and we can influence them to not just to do the treatments, but look at and monitor the outcomes, maintain the databases, and eventually what we want to obtain is a sustainable services over there. Okay, so charitable missions are doing a great job. There are a number of medical and surgical specialties involved with that, and my colleagues Barry in oncology and Sean with burns and plastic. But one thing particular in congenital heart defects is that it is one of those causes, as I said, a good opportunity. There are quite a lot of charities active in USA, UK, Israel and other countries. And they help in South America, mainly American charities, and Africa, Middle East and Asia. Repeated missions, as I said, would help in developing a center. And personally, I concentrate, foster and mentor 4 centers, 2 in India, 1 in Namibia and 1 in Egypt. The center with Egypt, we recently signed a memorandum of understanding with all the head. So that our plan is that they could access our online training, multidisciplinary meetings. We have 2 a week. So they can learn from those. They can access our journal clubs and teachings, which we have 2 every week. And also exchange of trainees, and then we going there with the missions. So I now talk about the Healing Little Hearts. It's a charity. It's a small charity, but with big global impact. It was started in 2007 by an intensive care doctor called Sanjeev Nichani in Leicester, and then we joined later on. The charity, there are only 7 of us in the team, and we all work voluntarily. There are 4 trustees: Sanjeev, myself, a surgeon, Salim from Aldhe is a cardiologist, and a nurse. And we have a treasurer who works voluntarily, a legal representative, and a coordinator for fundraising. That's it, only 7 people, no payments. So that's how we can guarantee that almost 98-99% of the money raised goes to the place where it's needed. The only money we pay is for auditors and submitting the auditing. So we raise money from India. I'll go a little bit further into that. And the purpose is to send a multidisciplinary team to the place where it's needed. So usually about 10 people. It includes a surgeon, cardiologist, intensivist, 1 or 2 intensive care nurses, perfusionists, and etc. And the role of Healing Little Hearts is only to pay for the flights. And this is expensive these days, £10,000 per each mission. And occasionally we do pay for accommodation of the staff, but most likely we insist the local team does some arrangement, otherwise it would become too much for us to bear. We spend about $250,000 a year for our charity missions. We do camps or missions we've done almost, apart from North America, we've been to every other continent. The volunteers give up to 9 days of their time. So we leave UK on Saturday and we will be back on Sunday. So we reached there on next Sunday. We reached there on Sunday. On the Sunday afternoon, we screen the children with repeat echocardiograms, etc. Plan for the operating Monday to Friday. Saturday morning, we hand over to the local teams, and we come out on Saturday to reach back UK on Sunday, so that we take that 1 week. Most of us take annual leave. Good initiative from Aldahe recently is that Aldahe is giving professional leave in a controlled numbers for controlled people, but that's a good incentive for volunteers to join. So what we have achieved so far, we've been to 6 continents, about 25 countries, 225 camps, and we just recently completed 3,000th operation in Fiji Islands. So where does the funding come from? Various sources, mainly UK. Charity balls usually happen in Leicester, and recently we started in Liverpool as well, and various activities. And here you can see, I don't know whether you recognize Sunil Gavaskar, former Indian cricketer and a legend. So the Doctors Association in Leeds hosted a dinner, and for us actually, and he came, and then he gave up some of his old bats, and we raised good money. And here a South Indian film actress called Samantha, she actually sponsored one of our first camps in South India, and people from UK do various 3 peaks and bike rides and etc. And the other thing is that Facebook has a birthday fundraiser for Healing Little Hearts. Every little helps, as we say. And I must do an advertisement here. There's a charity ball in Liverpool, which is coming up in October 5th, Saturday at Titanic Hotel. This is actually driven and organized by one of our cardiac parents, and the money would go to Healing Little Hearts as well as Aldahe charity. So if you're free, please attend. So what we have come across another important phenomena which helped everybody actually. So we use social media shamelessly because the purpose is to increase the awareness, fundraise, and whatever we do, and that's how we survive, because we don't advertise in any media, and that helps us. And our activities in Liverpool itself, I don't personally do generate, but we could inspire, and then I've generated up to £250,000 from Liverpool area alone. And some of this is that the cardiac parents do understand what the struggles they go through in UK, despite not to bother about the financial component of their child illness. And when it's come to financial components, you can understand how that struggle is going to be. So they're very sympathetic with the cause. So the parents raise money for the charity missions. And what we do is that we name the mission on their child's name, and that gives a great satisfaction for them. So we do camps like Live Forever camp number 3. So they've raised enough money for 4 or 5 camps in UK and Australia. And this is another Olivia Lives Legacy, James camp, etc. Liverpool is heavily involved, Aldahe Children's Hospital. You touch any cardiac related specialty, the number of people involved in that. Gokul has been on a couple of camps with me. There were about 6-7 cardiologists, all cardiac anesthetists, about 7 to 8 cardiac intensive care doctors, and a lot of nurses. So Aldahe is one of the strong base for Healing Little Hearts, and possibly contributing more staff from single institute than any other institute in UK. So when we do missions, the primary aim, of course, is saving lives of children and giving hope to the families. For families, it is something they probably, most of them wouldn't expect that somebody will come and operate. So they treat you very highly actually, and that is the rewarding part of for us, that they didn't have any hope. They go to several hospitals, they get quotes of, as I said, £4,000 or £5,000 for a common daily laborer. It is not even a lifetime saving. They can do it, and they go and they give up, and then they go home to their villages. And when we go there, sometimes when we start a new center, we advertise. When you advertise, you get thousands of calls for them. That's the final hope for them, and they have to sometimes shut down the phone lines. And when you open an OPD, you will see a queue of people. It's heartbreaking to see them, but that is the reality, and that's the situation, and that's what actually inspires us to go back and then do more work. And we use the camps to do a bit for the congenital heart disease. So we use media and other sources to increase the awareness, and media is one of those. In India, there's so many channels, so many papers, they want the news, so they're ready, and we use that to publish in newspapers or and in TV interviews and TV programs. And we also take that opportunity to meet the government officials, to influence them to give priority to children's heart disease. In 2015, I met is the Chief Minister equivalent to First Minister of Scotland or Wales of Andhra Pradesh, and we could influence him to fund our missions in that hospital. He lost power, and last week he's come back to power again. This is another northern remote area, Jammu Kashmir. He was a former Chief Minister, and through him we could influence and then organize a camp there. And we use the camps to do teaching and training activities, and that's one of the tertiary aim, but fundamentally very important for us. We do CME programs and CPD accredited programs. One of the things we found in India is that the general belief among the pediatricians, general pediatricians, that you don't need to close the VSDs, they close by themselves. It may be true when they're muscular and when they're small, but the big VSDs, they don't close. And that causes severe problems to the children, that you have a left heart to right shunt for a while, but after a while, the lungs get pulmonary hypertension and the shunts get reversed. We might have all heard about Eisenmingers. We don't see Eisenmingers in UK, but it's very common, and it's heartbreaking for us to see these children to say, sorry, we can't operate, we can't do anything more. And that's what helps, to go out to the pediatricians and tell them that, no, you refer to the cardiologist or a cardiac center. They will decide whether it will close, needs monitoring, or whether it needs immediate surgery. You can see people, ICU consultant, Franks, cardiologists, anesthetist, everybody involved in teaching there. And it's one of our PSU nurse as well. She's done her own teaching. It's not just one-off teaching. When we are there, what we do is that, as I mentioned, we want to support them continuously. So one example is that one of the hospitals here, I'll come back again, Andhra Hospital. So they have set up a complex cases group where we are involved in, we advise them, me as a surgeon from here, and my close friend Prem, who used to work in Alderhay, who's now in Brisbane, together with their cardiologist, anesthetist, and cardiac surgeon. And they send us information, and we advise them, often sometimes from the theatre or before. So I just want to talk about a difference we made to an area, and this is a comparison. So Andhra Pradesh is the state in southern India. It was bifurcated and separated from a bigger state in 2015. That's where our activity started. So it was just for comparison of one state, Andhra Pradesh, with one country in UK, England, geographically more or less same, population more or less same, you think, but the birth rate is much higher there, and live births are higher. Congenital heart defects treatment options, because as wherever the pediatric services are available in the developing countries, they are mainly based in bigger centers, very big centers, capital cities, and etc. When this state was bifurcated, the capital was in another state, so they didn't have any facilities at all for whole of the state. There were no pediatric cardiac center, no pediatric cardiac surgeons, no pediatric cardiologists. What they do is that some of the adult surgeons might do some pediatric, but very grown up, not the babies, infants, etc. So if you compare that in UK, we have about, in England, we have 10 centers, 35 cardiac surgeons, and about 90 specialist cardiologists. So that hospital, the reason we picked is that the hospital pediatrician and the surgeon who's the boss of the hospital were trained in UK in the Northwest. So that was the link for us to be attached with them. So they invited us and we did our first camp end of November, December 2015. I went there with Sanjeev and our operations were performed by that, sponsored by the film actress Samantha. And we took that opportunity to meet that First Minister, Chandrababu Naidu, and who was agreed to fund all the operations performed in that operation by the government. And we continuously supported them and still support them. And I show you the difference that now. So these are the number of pediatric surgeries performed by year. So as I said, we started in December, the first camp, we did quite a few number, and they started working 2016, 86, and it's just gone and gone, except it was hit badly by the COVID. And the last data I have is 2022, they performed about 342 operations per year. And this center previously, they were only performing adult cardiac surgery with a small team. Cardiac interventions. In 2018, an interventional cardiologist trained in UK went and joined the team, and he started doing interventions. Once again, that has increased in number. But significantly, what I can show in this slide is that this shows the number of operations performed by the local team, and this line shows the number of operations performed by the Healing Little Hearts visiting team. As we can see in the beginning, we have been doing more operations for the first 2-3 years, and they were learning, and you can see that exponential growth, and the local team were performing most of the operations by themselves. We only go there to support with very complex operations. And that's the sustainable services we want to help and develop. So we tied up with Egypt now, Cairo. Namibia is one of the centers which I adopted with another surgeon from Newcastle. Another center we were working is Nizam's Institute in Hyderabad, which is a big institute, big adult center, but there's no pediatric services at all. And what we managed to do there is that, and there is also Nilofer Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in the world, children's hospital with more than 2,000 beds, and they're increasing up to 3,000. But there's no link between them. So we went and persuaded the health minister, and we combined them together, and we started a pediatric service there. They recruited a pediatric surgeon, and we're in the process of developing the full team. So it's not just the benefits for the local team. What we found is that we get a lot of benefits. I'll play this video while I talk, and this is making a heart valve there and then. We never have to do this in UK or developed countries because we have got factory manufactured valves on the shelves, but there you don't have that, you can't afford it. While it plays, I'll explain to you others. So the biggest benefit is that it's a large volume. There are so many cases. Our staff, for me to do, probably in a week I might do 3-4 operations per week, but when I go and operate there, I could do 15 or 20 surgeries in 1 week. That's a big experience for me. And when I take other people like a scrub nurse or a trainee, that's a huge thing. For a scrub nurse, it could be 2-3 months worth of experience in 1 week. And also we see very advanced pathologies which we don't see here, so we are much more safely operating. When you go and explore over there, you increase your risk-taking abilities, and you work out of your comfort zone, and that makes you very resilient and strong. And you have to innovate with the surgical techniques as well as with the equipment, and some of them we bring it back and we benefit from them as well. For example, the sutures we get are very minimum there. They won't generally give you a suture. Here, when we use once, we throw and then ask for another one. But it's not. For a bypass surgery, they will say that you do 3 bypass graft with 1 suture. The nurses are very strict there. But when we go there and we learn that, and then we realize that why we are wasting this much in UK? Why can't we do similar to them? Not to that extent, but it embeds into our culture of saving, not to waste. Teamwork. Though we work here, we hardly interact socially and that much. It's mainly business oriented. but a group of us travel together, you bond very well and you develop much better relationships, and that's the biggest benefit. Networking, as I said, not only we develop personal networking and we network institutions which are important to each other, and you meet other people which are interesting as well. This was a tweet, I can't say tweet now, it's called X, you can't say tweeted, I don't know what you call now. Charlotte Fenton is a Deputy High Commissioner in Namibia, and interestingly her child had a transposition of great arteries, baby born and was operated. So she's a mother who knows all these things, and she's now a Deputy High Commissioner in Namibia. So I linked with them. We invited her to come and visit one of the missions, and she visited. It was a year ago, and she tweeted about it 2 days ago. And what we do is that we link up the governmental institutions from UK with what we do. And I developed friendship with the Deputy High Commissioner in Hyderabad, Gareth Owens, who is actually from Chester, and another Deputy High Commissioner in Calcutta is Andrew. Andrew is a great man. So we develop that network and relationships and friendships. And we bring back benefits to the NHS and UK as well. We spread I think we increase the reputation of our own institute as well as NHS as a whole. We promise you we never behave badly. When we were there, we behave up to our best. And we recruit trainees, and we have number of trainees coming from other places purely because of these camps. So I met one of these young lady in one of the camps in Mumbai. She wanted to do cardiac intensive care, so we brought her over. She worked for 1 year in ICU, 1 year in cardiology, and now she's a cardiac intensivist in Mumbai. And we struggle recruiting surgical trainees in pediatric cardiac surgery, and we purely based on overseas fellowships. And when I go for these camps, I bring them back. Health partnerships we develop, and there are some research projects. We're working with South Africa and India about cyanosis and myocardial function. So multi-center, multi-country research projects. So I'm coming to an end. I just to play one of these videos about one of our missions in Namibia. I don't know how to reduce the volume. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and listening to me.
That was truly humbling and an outstanding presentation. It's customary to invite questions from the audience, so let's see what's going to be bowled at me, Ram. Sean.
I've got two questions, Ram. Thank you very much. The first one is you showed that very interesting graph of the number of surgeries that had taken place by a centre before you came, when you were there, and then what they're able to do by themselves. Is that as a result of the sort of few missions that you have done to that place, or have they got some additional training or ongoing links with you that make that feasible for sustainability?
I think the important thing for that successful program is that firstly the management, as I said, a pediatrician and the surgeon are the owners of that hospital. They were encouraged. Secondly, good team, local team. They already had a very good cardiac surgeon, a skilled, and an anesthetist, which are brilliant, and the pediatric cardiologists who were trained in UK went there. Three of them together formed a good team, and the friendship and relationship we made with them. So we made repeated camps or missions that myself, Prem, and other surgeons as well went, and we supported them throughout. So all that resulted in for them to be sustainable and then increase their numbers.
Thank you. Can I ask you a second question?
Yeah.
So the second question was just a more general one, which is just that, supermarkets have changed, haven't they now? So they don't just throw all their sandwiches away, they recycle, not recycle, but they put food, they change the way they do their sell-by dates. And I think you are raising a really interesting point there around, what gets thrown away in the NHS. So do you have any ideas or thoughts, or do you think, professionals should be clubbing together to make a big drive so that we don't waste so much?
There are, yeah, I think I personally believe that we waste a lot of money in the NHS. Simple things can save a lot of money, and that money can be better spent. One of the examples I've already mentioned, a big patch, small patch. That's because previously hospitals used to sterilize themselves or send to a central bit, but it's now privatized now. And the companies as well, they're driven for money. They say that your life of an IV infusion pump is 3 years, that's it. It's still working, but you can't use it. And it's a policy that we have disposed about 300 good and working IV infusion machines recently. There's something we can do it.
Come back on that. So I contacted one of our research nurses on this very issue, all the lab stuff. So there is a little group at Alderhay looking at it's small stuff. It's to do with the laboratory equipment and test kits and the like. So Sean, pleased to know you're the new chair of the recyclable working group at Alderhay. I haven't seen the research. I don't know whether the health service weighs hundreds of millions of pounds each year, and it's something that we need to address. So perhaps we're going to bring it up at the next ICH meeting, but give it something to do.
Just need to clarify something. Did you mean that the higher the fertility in the population, the higher the incidence of congenital heart disease? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, it's
If that is so, why is it?
it's the incidence is related to the number of childbirths. Say 1 every 100 babies, 1 out of every 100 babies born is bound to have a congenital heart defects. So if you have 1,000, there will be 10 rather than 100, 1 in UK. That's so what it is.
The population density will be greater.
Yeah.
Go on, Barry.
Can I press you on your outcomes? So it's fantastic that you're strict on recording your outcomes, which is fine. How different are they? Obviously, it depends upon the state of the kid and their heart when they get to surgery, and presumably some post-operative problems. So, how different are they?
Higher. The mortality is higher than UK.
Yeah.
Even we go and operate.
What's your feeling as to the reasons? Is it the lateness of the surgery, or is it post-operative problems, or how does it work?
A combination of both, because the resources we can rescue better here, but we can't rescue them that well with the limited resources, and as you said, that advanced age. Sometimes we can't even offer an operation, we have to refuse, but sometimes you have to take that risk in borderline cases. Like anybody comes with what you call a big VSD of 10, 12-year-olds, you won't operate here, you do a catheter and then etc. But you have to operate there because they're about to reach that stage of inoperability. So you have to do them, and then usually you prioritize those cases who can wait. A combination of these things, we see the mortality is higher than UK. In UK, probably roughly under 2% here of 30-day mortality, but it could be 4% if you put all the missions and all the cases together.
In the centres that you work most closely with, do you see that mortality gap closing, or?
It is closing. Yeah. It is closing. So the centres who do it often, they get better. And the resources also, they can get better resources gradually.
Peter.
That was a really inspiring talk. And it's wonderful that you've done all the stuff you have. I guess, really following on from the last set of comments, I'm wondering about follow-up. Because as you said, you're there for 9 days or whatever a year, and you have camps and you do this terrific work. And now there's obviously a team of people who are there. But I was wondering about the resource implications. You come in and suddenly you've got this exponential rise in the number of, not quite exponential, but pretty fast rise in the number of paediatric surgeries. But those children need some follow-up. So how do you manage that?
For immediate post-operative follow-up, we continue to advise them after the camp until the patients are discharged. So that's not just me as a surgeon, the ICU team will keep doing that. In terms of late follow-up, the centers who do them regularly can get them back, but it's daunting. So in UK, all congenital heart patients are followed up for life. Unless they're straightforward, they get discharged like AST, VST. Tetralogy and AV canal defects, they'll be followed up for life. It's difficult in India for two reasons. One is the resources they have, and also the patients themselves. They go to villages somewhere and you never see them. And one of the problems in India is that people put mechanical valves to children or adults out of desperation, and they don't take warfarin, they don't come for follow-ups, and they come all of a sudden with a blocked valve. And that's quite common.
Sorry, you had a question.
It's rather similar to Peter's. I just wondered if you put a graft in, say a VSD, what materials you putting on? Does it grow with the child as the heart grows, or would you need to? At some stage, you almost certainly have to replace it. Likewise with the valve.
The things like VSDs, we don't need to go back because the patch may be static, but the muscle around it grows.
Right.
So we don't need to go back and do that. For valves, it's a different story. So that's why in pediatric we try to conserve and repair, and even if they are not perfect, we accept that and follow that up rather than replace it. If you replace, as you said, they need to be replaced again at some point. And that is that's why we do quite a lot of reoperations than any other specialty. For that reason, that they come back.
Gokul, has it been educationally worthwhile?
Definitely.
Definitely, that's good.
It was very good to see the experience of the camps in a particular hospital and see how you can train them to do their own surgeries. And it also shows that it's important to have a good team and motivated team that carry on doing that work. So you mentioned about private and public healthcare system differences in India. So how do you see when you go to a camp if you have not been there before, then how do you know what kind of facilities you get and what kind of team you might get? And how do you make a decision to do the first camp before you do that? How do you decide or ongoing support and training them for future camps?
A lot of work goes beforehand, so a lot of phone calls to inquire and engage with them to see what facilities they have, what facilities they don't have. And we go to various places, like Vijayawada is an adult center, private, working well as an adult. Karimnagar, where we went, closer to where I was born, they have a little bit of cardiac surgery where a surgeon from a city, Hyderabad, will go 1 day a week and operate, and that is the basic thing they have. But we wanted to go and work with them, and we worked with them and performed over 100 operations. So, and when I go to these missions in India, if I'm looking for a new center, I make that visit and to meet people and see the facilities. And other places it's not possible to go beforehand, like Namibia, Egypt, but a lot of communication.
If there's no, Barry, you're just
the soapbox thing. I mean, this is, but one of the disappointing things, not just Alder Hey, but I think around the NHS, is how undervalued this work is. I've seen that at Alder Hey, but I don't think that's an exception. I think it's a universal thing. I know that if you look at, certainly in cancer, most of our centres will be doing health partnership or humanitarian work, but it's not valued, or at least it's not shouted out. Okay, and I think there may be something about the NHS doesn't want to, shout out that there's this amazing work being done because of the reaction of these doctors going overseas while they're spending their time treating our kids. I find it disappointing, But anyway, we've got to keep the good fight going. And, I don't know really, not a question.
No, I felt that. So part of the reason I take my annual leave to avoid all those things. There was some suggestion I could have tried hard for professional leave and etc. But you always get that criticism as to why he's not operating here. And 1 or 2 times parents did ask why he's not operating here. But if it is my annual leave, it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
So one of the pleasures of being president, and it's a short pleasure because you only get to do it for a year, is choosing your speakers and then being inspired by their talks. But I do get to say thank you. So I'm going to ask you to come down to the front and ask people not to clap just yet, but come down to the front. I have to do this right because I get my hands. So I have to shake your hand and pass this over this one. And then hopefully, Coco's going to do it. You are going to be the social media champion tonight. So this is thank you very, very much. Now you can all clap.
It's a privilege and an honor for me to come out. So what's the reward of my work is that I've been invited here today as a guest. And that's the reward.
You're in very good company.
Thank you very much.
Truly humbling. The amount of dedication that you've given to your professional activity and to the children and the rest of the world is truly humbling. So thank you very, very much.